Well, first of all, welcome to Color Me Country. I am so ridiculously excited. I say this all the time, but I really mean it right now. I am super excited to have this next guest on the show. He's, he's, as the children say, he is iconic. And he's a big old star. And he is one of the hosts of the CMAs this year. And so I am super excited to introduce to all of you Mr. Darius Rucker.
How are you doing, Rissi? It's an honor to be on your show. An honor.
It's an honor to have you. No, I'm good. I'm excited. Like, look, I did my hair. Like, that's how excited I am. Listen, I'm not even wearing sweatpants. Like, that's how serious this is. So let's get into like the big thing that is happening in your life, like in a couple days.
Yeah.
You got the phone call that you were going to be hosting the 54th CMAs with Reba McEntire. What was that call like?
Oh my goodness. I was sitting here. I think I might have had a writing session or something. And my manager calls me and he says to me, are you by yourself? That's what he said. I said, hey, him and I have a rule. We have a rule. Like, he doesn't call me every day. We don't talk. Like, when Clarence calls, I pick up. I'm talking.
Right.
It's important. So he says, "Are you by yourself?" And my first thought is, "Oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? I just really messed it up. I did something." And he said, "What do you think about hosting the CMA Awards with Reba?" And it overwhelmed me because I've really started to study the history of all this stuff in country music, and you think back to I remember Charlie getting to do it back in the day, and how big of a deal that was, and how huge of a thing that was in the business, and here I am, 30 years later or whatever it is, and I'm getting this opportunity, and it was just. It was overwhelming for a minute.
One of the really awesome things that you get to do, in addition to hosting with Reba McEntire, who is all the things, you're going to be giving Charlie Pride the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award. And it's like, considering who Charlie is and what his legacy is, like, what is it like? How does that sit with you? Like, how does this feel? How does that part of it feel?
It's truly surreal. Because I've listened to Charlie Pride since I was a kid. One of when I was a little kid in the early '70s, and Charlie's making these records. I remember having a Charlie Pride record in my mom's collection that I don't think my mom ever put on, but she bought that record because he was a black man singing country music.
Yes.
So she bought the Charlie Pride record.
Yes.
And so I listened to it, and and it was and. But I think back to then. I remember the first time I saw Charlie on Hee Haw, because Hee Haw was so big for me because I love music, and one of the three places you could see music on TV was Hee Haw. It was Hee Haw, American Bandstand, and Soul Train. That's where you saw music on TV. And here comes this guy that looks like me singing "Kissing the Angel Good Morning," and you're like, oh my goodness,
Right.
and it was such a great thing, and now. Decades and decades later, to be a part of him getting an award, because if you look at country music, all the big stars, all the superstars that have gone that are still waiting to get awards like this, there's nobody that deserves it more than Charlie. Nobody. And
No.
And I'm just, to be a part of that, I'm so honored, and I'm honored to call him friend.
So your song, Don't Think I Don't Think About It, off of your 2008 debut, you were the first Black artist to reach *1 on the country charts since Charlie in 1983.
I made the record, and everything started happening, and then you start thinking about my song went to number 25, and somebody came to me. Somebody came to me and said, "This was the first time an African American had a top 25 hit since in 25 years." And this is exactly what I said. I said, seriously? I was like, Trini Triggs, Rissi Palmer didn't have a top 25 hit? And that was shocking to me.
Child.
I was like, you have to be kidding me. He got the top 25, and those are the people. I was like, Cowboy Troy and Trini and Reese, they didn't have, that was crazy to me. And then, everything kept going. And that is really one of those things that it's astounding, but to see what happened with me and now to see what's happening. And
Yes.
the doors aren't kicked open, but the doors are open now, and it's so open that Kane Brown's a freaking superstar. If I went
Right.
out, if I went on tour with Kane right now, I'd have to open, and I'd be proud to do it. And I'd be proud to do it.
One of the things that really touched me when I was researching for this interview was your interview that you did with the Today Show. And you were so candid and so honest in a way that, not to say that you're not normally candid or honest or real or any of that, but it was a way that I hadn't seen press talk to you before, or you talk about things. And I'm not gonna lie, I got emotional when I saw it, because I recognized a lot of my journey in some of what you were saying. And one particular line that just got me, it was just like, it is no longer all right to perpetuate the myth that things are okay. And, we're sitting here talking and, we're not in a vacuum. So like there's a lot going on in the world right this moment while we're talking to each other. And, the summer that just passed with all the uprisings and the unrest and George Floyd and the countless other people that followed after him. And I just want to know, like, what made you feel in that moment that like this was the moment to say this? Because like a lot of, like Chris Stapleton is getting backlash right now from simply saying that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And Maren Morris just came out as a Biden supporter and put out her song last week. And then, Mickey has put 2 back-to-back songs that are timely moment, like Me Too and Black Lives Matter type songs. And so what was the last straw for you? Like what was the thing?
I think it was everything that was good, everything that was going on in the world, and watching. It was Charlottesville, it was a whole bunch of stuff. Just watching the world that we knew changed. Watching how open it is, and to the people that are doing it, how they seem cool, how they think it's cool now to hate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something for me that. And watching that all go down like that, I just felt like, I'm not a real political guy. I don't really get in that stuff. I make music for me, and I hope people like it. But it was time. But I just felt like it was time to say something, because I was feeling different. I mean, because you grow up in Charleston, South Carolina, your whole life, and you're told as a kid, whenever you see any racism, you're told as a kid that's just the way it is. I grew up in the early 70s and 80s where that's what you were told. That's just the way it is. And so that's what you accept after a while. And, getting older and doing the things I was doing in the world that I was doing in it, just by myself, trying to do it. I would say to myself, that's just the way it is. Then I get here in Nashville and you already have your preconceived notions. And so you get here, and so no matter what happens, that's just the way it is. I mean, I remember saying to myself, you can put up with whatever happens here, because whatever happens to you is not going to be 1/100th of what Charlie Pride went through. Whatever happens to you is not going to be close to what Charlie went through. So you could pull up with all the crap that you have to. Just go get this. And, and that's what we did. But I look now, and when I wrote that, I was really at a point where, oh goodness, my daughter, we grew up in Charleston. She grew up in Charleston too. It's, you got your friends, the people you love, and she went to public school and everything. So she had her group of friends, and all that's going down. And I just remember her saying how hurt she was to find out how really some of her friends were just so racist. And how hurt she, that was a stay at home a couple days thing, really deal with that, and there's nobody in the world that could talk to her more than me,
Yeah, right.
So, So I talked to her about that, and we talked about that, and she came out much better on the other side. But at the time, for me, it was just hard to watch because my son was 15, and I knew he was about to be 16, and we were already having the talk about driving.
Lord, he's getting ready to start driving.
Yeah,
Lord, yeah.
and that was just another thing. I was like, I'm going to really have to sit down and because the 16-year-old goes, Dad, I know, Dad, I know. No, you don't friggin'
Right.
know.
No.
Listen to what
No.
I'm saying. And I got to tell them, I do it. I do it until they know who I am and everybody lightens up. I do it. I do exactly what I'm telling you to do until they look at my ID and they got everything they need. Okay, so just listen to me. And that was just not a moment. That was a moment that my life was really changing. The way I saw life was changing. The way I wanted to approach it was just different. It's not just okay anymore. I'm not gonna just sit back and let things happen. I mean, that's just, I'm not going to compromise my life and career for someone's hatred anymore.
Yeah. Amen. Another reoccurring theme on this show is the true history of country music and like exposing, I don't want to say exposing because it's like, yeah, but bringing to light the contributions that people of color have made and making people realize that the history of this music is not nearly as white
Oh yeah.
as everybody thinks. And how does this, as I learn more, I become more confident and more empowered in speaking about it and speaking to, what I think the industry should try to strive for. How does it make you feel? Like the more, like you mentioned earlier, that you're starting to get more into the history of things. And like, as you learn more and as you see what's going on and that sort of thing and like kind of gain more autonomy, like how does that make you feel as an artist in this genre?
Oh, it makes you, like you said, it empowers you. It makes you feel like you're not just doing something that's new or different. I mean, you're just doing something that the people that did it before you, the songwriters and the musicians that played together back in the day, you know,
Right.
when those folks were, doing, just nobody was talking about it. Nobody would talk about it. And so now I feel like, I'm just not, I'm carrying torch. I'm out there for them too. I'm out trying to have success and for them too. So maybe if somebody sees me and they can go read some history and know about the Fort Bailey, this, the first thing I do every time I walk in when I go in the Opry, I look at the Fort Bailey plaque and I touch mine every time I go in and every time I go out because, that's it, and Charlie's is right in between us. I know exactly where it is, but the Fort
Yep.
is that, no one talks about him. And he was such an integral part of country music and such an integral part of the Opry, which is the heart of country music. And everybody wants to talk about everybody else. And DeFord was there at the beginning and through it all until he died.
Yeah.
And that history is like the stuff that I'm hoping that people discover if they're discovering, country music or black people or black country music, whatever you want to call it, because there was a lot of people before us. They just didn't get talked about.
Well, Darius, like you have been wonderful, and it has been so
Thank you.
good to talk to you.
Great
And
talking to you, Rissi.
still cool after all these years. I appreciate you,
Oh, thank you.
and I wish you much luck and success. And I'm excited to watch I'm gonna watch the CMAs all the way through. Thank you so much. Stay safe,
You too.
and I'll holla.
God bless you.
We'll talk to you later.
See you
Have a good
later.
one.
Bye.
Bye.